What if I told you that the version of American democracy you've been taught isn't the full story? That the land of the free might not be as free as we've been led to believe? You've heard it countless times. Democracy is the voice of the people. Every vote counts, and we're all equal under the law. But what if I told you it's not that simple? Imagine this. You're told you have power, that your vote matters, that you live in a system where freedom and equality are the bedrock. But behind that shiny facade, there are forces at play that might be quietly controlling your choices. What if the very system designed to give you power is actually rigged against you? Stick with me through this video, because by the end, you'll see a side of American democracy you never expected. A side where money, power, and influence pull the strings, and your vote might not be as powerful. Are you ready to uncover the truth? Because what you're about to hear will challenge everything you thought you knew. Keep watching, and let's dive into why American democracy is not what. Have you ever wondered if the version of American democracy you've been taught is the real deal? We've all heard it. America is a land of freedom, where democracy means power to the people. But how much of this picture is actually true? From the moment we enter school, we're taught that democracy in America is the ultimate example of freedom. We're told that we have the power to vote, to choose our leaders, and that everyone has an equal voice in how the country is run. The idea is simple. The people decide. The majority rules. Everyone has a say. But here's the problem. That's the fairy tale version. It's the version we're fed. The truth is far more complicated, and it's time we face it. Yes, America was founded on lofty ideals like liberty, justice, and the pursuit of happiness. But does it actually deliver on these promises? Before we dive into the messier side of things, think about this. We all know the system isn't perfect, but what if it's not just imperfect? What if it's fundamentally flawed in ways you never realized? Stick with me till the end of this video, and I'll show you why American democracy might not be what you think. The reality is darker, and the more you know, the more you'll start questioning everything. So, let's peel back the layers and take a closer look at what we're really taught about democracy and what's left out. It's easy to believe that in a democracy, the people hold the power. But let's take a step back. Who really controls the decisions that shape our lives? Is it the people, or is it something or someone else entirely? The truth is, the real power in America doesn't rest solely in the hands of voters. It's often hidden behind closed doors, controlled by elites, corporations, and special interest groups. We're told that elections give us the power to choose our leaders, but behind every election, there's a shadowy web of influence that most of us don't see. Take a look at the role of lobbying, for example. Corporations and interest groups spend billions of dollars each year, pushing their agendas through lobbyists who have direct access to lawmakers. These lobbyists aren't just talking about healthcare or education. They're talking about the policies that can enrich their clients at the expense of the rest of us. And guess who gets the most attention? Not the average citizen, but the corporations with deep pockets. This doesn't stop with lobbyists. Campaign donations are another key player in the game. When a corporation donates large sums to a political candidate's campaign, what do you think they expect in return? It's not a surprise that these donations often result in policies that favor big business over the needs of everyday people. So, while we're all out here voting, our elected officials are more often than not answering to the people who funded their campaigns, not the people who actually voted. And don't forget about the underrepresented groups. Minority communities, lower-income individuals, and even rural voters often find themselves ignored, their voices drowned out by the noise of big-money interests. Despite the supposed promise of equality, these groups don't have an equal say in how the country is run. In fact, their issues are often sidelined, while the priorities of wealthier, more influential groups take center stage. So, the next time you hear about democracy in America, remember, what you're being shown is just the surface. The power structures are more complicated and far less democratic than we're led to believe. And as we dig deeper into this video, you'll see how these hidden influences make it harder than ever for the average person to have a real say. Now, let's talk about something most people don't fully realize: the ways in which the system actively works against voters. Democracy is supposed to be about giving everyone a voice, right? But what happens when that voice is silenced, manipulated, or even erased altogether? Voter suppression is one of the darkest aspects of American democracy. It's not just a thing of the past. It's happening right now. We often think of the right to vote as a sacred one. After all, it's the foundation of our democratic system. But in reality, there are countless obstacles designed to prevent certain people from voting, especially in marginalized communities. Whether it's strict voter ID laws, which disproportionately affect the poor and minorities, or the closure of polling places in predominantly Black or Latino neighborhoods, these measures are often more about keeping people away from the polls than protecting the integrity of the vote. And let's not forget about gerrymandering, the manipulation of district boundaries to favor one political party over another. This practice, done under the guise of fair representation, has led to elections where the outcome isn't truly representative of the will of the people. Politicians can essentially choose their voters, rather than voters choosing their politicians. It creates an illusion of democracy, while stripping away the power of the electorate. In some states, felony disenfranchisement is another form of voter suppression. Once someone is convicted of a felony, they often lose their right to vote. While these laws are justified as part of punishment, they disproportionately affect African American communities. This practice not only silences a significant portion of the population, but also strips them of their power to influence the very system that controls their future. These practices make it clear American democracy isn't as equal and inclusive as we're told. Far too many people are systematically excluded, and the obstacles they face are designed to keep the political power in the hands of a select few. The voting process, in its ideal form, should be about giving everyone a voice. But in reality, it's about preventing certain voices from being heard. This is one of the most glaring contradictions in the so-called land of freedom and equality. As we continue, you'll see how these barriers to voting tie into the bigger picture of political inequality, where certain groups always seem to be left out of the conversation, while others hold all the power. If you've ever felt like voting in America comes down to picking the lesser of two evils, you're not alone. The two-party system dominates American politics, but does it really offer us meaningful choices? In theory, democracy is supposed to give people a wide range of options, right? We're meant to be able to choose from different viewpoints and policies, selecting the one that best aligns with our values. But in practice, the American political landscape is largely limited to just two choices: Democrat or Republican. These two parties have such a hold on the system that other political voices struggle to break through. Think about it. Every election cycle, we're faced with a stark decision: vote for the Democrat or vote for the Republican. Both parties claim to represent the people, but they often fail to address the issues that matter most to a large portion of the population. And even when they do, their policies rarely challenge the status quo. The system works well for those in power, but it doesn't necessarily work for the people who need it most. Third-party candidates, who might represent more diverse or radical ideas, rarely stand a chance in elections. They face insurmountable hurdles, from restrictive ballot access laws to a media that largely ignores them. As a result, millions of voters are left feeling that their views aren't truly represented in the election process. They're stuck choosing between two options that may not align with their ideals at all. The two-party system also promotes a culture of division. Instead of encouraging healthy debate and cooperation, it leads to polarization, where the focus is on defeating the other side rather than finding common ground. Issues become less about solving real problems and more about winning a political battle. This divisiveness undermines the very idea of democracy, which should be about finding solutions that serve everyone, not just the political elite. In essence, the two-party system limits our choices and creates a false sense of democracy. It tells us we have options, but in reality, we're often choosing between two sides of the same coin. When we're stuck in this cycle, it's easy to feel like our votes don't matter or that the system isn't working for us. And that feeling is exactly what the two-party system wants us to feel. As we move forward, keep this in mind. True democracy would offer more than just two choices. It would empower voters to pick from a diverse range of voices, not just those who fit neatly into one of two categories. So, is the American political system really as democratic as it seems? Or are we just playing a game with rigged rules? If there's one thing that's clear in American politics, it's this: money talks. And when it comes to democracy, it's the wealthiest voices that are often the loudest. But what does that mean for the rest of us? The idea behind a democracy is that every citizen's voice counts equally, regardless of their financial situation. But in reality, money has an overwhelming influence on the political process. Let's start with campaign funding. Every election cycle, political candidates raise millions, sometimes billions, of dollars to fund their campaigns. While it's true that individuals can donate, the real power lies in the hands of big corporations, super PACs, and wealthy donors. These deep-pocketed interests have the ability to pour massive amounts of money into supporting candidates who will favor their agendas. This isn't just about supporting a candidate's run for office. It's about gaining access. When a corporation or wealthy individual makes a sizable donation, it's not just a gesture of support. It's a strategic investment. Politicians, once in office, are expected to return the favor by pushing policies that benefit these financial backers. This creates a system where the wealthiest Americans, those with the most money to spend, have disproportionate influence over the laws that affect everyone else. The effects of this are far-reaching. It's not just about election outcomes. The influence of money in politics leads to policies that prioritize corporate interests over the public good. Think about healthcare, for example. Big pharmaceutical companies and insurance providers spend millions lobbying politicians to block universal health care or regulation that could cut into their profits. The result? A system that works better for those with deep pockets and worse for those who struggle to afford basic health. This isn't just limited to health care. It stretches across every issue from tax policy to environmental protection. Corporations and wealthy donors fund political candidates and causes that align with their financial interests, pushing for deregulation, lower taxes, and policies that benefit the few at the expense of the many. So, how does this affect democracy? It creates a system where the average citizen's voice is drowned out by the sound of cash. When money plays such a significant role in elections, the idea that every vote matters equally becomes a distant fantasy. Instead of making decisions that reflect the will of the people, politicians are often forced to consider the needs of their biggest financial backers first. And in doing so, the power of the average voter diminishes. As we move forward, it's clear that money in politics isn't just a minor issue. It's a fundamental flaw in the democratic system. It undermines the very idea of equality, creating a political landscape where the rich and powerful have a stranglehold on power. So, as we look at the way money shapes American politics, we must ask ourselves, is this really democracy, or is it something else entirely? Have you ever felt like you're voting for change, only to see the same problems persist? It's as if no matter who's in office, the outcome is always more of the same. That's because, in many ways, the political system is designed to keep things just the way they are. Every election cycle, politicians promise change. They tell us that if we vote for them, they'll fix the system, tackle the issues, and make life better for everyone. But when they're actually in power, how much really changes? It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of a new leader or a new party. But more often than not, the same policies and practices continue to dominate. Take a look at the revolving door between government and big business. Politicians leave office and walk straight into lucrative lobbying or corporate positions. These former lawmakers who once made decisions for the public are now using their influence to benefit private companies. This creates a situation where, instead of serving the interests of their constituents, politicians are working for the very corporations they once regulated. The cycle is self-perpetuating. The people in power get richer, while the public's problems remain unsolved. This revolving door also creates a lack of real political will to change the status quo. After all, when the people who are supposed to be making decisions are financially tied to the industries they regulate, there's little incentive to create meaningful reforms. Whether it's corporate tax breaks, deregulation, or the maintenance of broken systems, the changes that are promised during campaigns often turn out to be little more than empty rhetoric. The political parties, too, are part of this illusion of change. While they may differ on some policies, they are often both beholden to the same corporate interests and wealthy donors. When it comes to the big decisions like the economy, foreign policy, or corporate regulation, the differences between the two parties start to blur. What's left is a political system that appears to offer choices, but in reality, both parties are serving the same underlying interests. So what's the result? It's the illusion of change. The promises of transformation and reform seem enticing, but when the dust settles, it often feels like nothing has changed at all. The new faces in power don't bring the change they promised because the system itself is designed to keep the same people and interests in control. The more we rely on elections to fix the system, the more we're caught in a cycle that keeps us hoping for change that never really comes. And as we move forward, we need to ask ourselves, how much of this is truly change, and how much is just a carefully crafted illusion to keep us voting year after year without ever really changing anything? In any democracy, free access to information is essential. People need to be well informed in order to make decisions that reflect their true interests. But what happens when the very media that is supposed to inform us is actually shaping our perceptions in ways we don't even realize? In America, the media plays a crucial role in how we understand politics, policies, and the world around us. But what many don't realize is that the media landscape is dominated by a small number of powerful corporations. These corporations own the majority of news outlets, from television stations to newspapers and digital platforms. With this concentrated ownership, it's easy to see how the information we receive is filtered through the lens of corporate interests. The result? News coverage often prioritizes sensational stories over in-depth analysis. Media outlets thrive on clickbait and drama, while complex issues are simplified or ignored altogether. This creates a public that is less informed and more influenced by emotional appeals than by reasoned debate. Instead of focusing on the actual policies that affect our lives, the media often distracts us with scandals, personal attacks, and trivial matters that divert our attention away from the real issues. But it's not just about the type of stories being told. It's about whose voices are being heard. Corporate media outlets have a vested interest in protecting the status quo because they benefit from the same systems of power that keep them in control. When a media is owned by a handful of corporations, it's less likely to hold those corporations accountable for their actions. Instead, we often see media companies downplay the negative effects of corporate influence or even promote the idea that the system is working as it should. Moreover, the media can exacerbate divisions within society. News outlets often cater to specific political ideologies or demographics, further dividing the public along partisan lines. Instead of fostering understanding and cooperation, the media amplifies polarization, turning every issue into a battle between us and them. This makes it even harder to build consensus or solve the problems that affect us all. The media's role in this is profound. It shapes how we view our fellow citizens, the government, and the world at large. But the question is it truly helping us make informed decisions, or is it simply reinforcing the power of those who already control the system? As we move forward, it's important to recognize that the media doesn't just report the news, it helps create it. And the way it shapes our perception of American democracy plays a key role in how we understand our own power and agency. The media, in many ways, controls the narrative. And when the narrative is controlled by the few, how can we trust that the story we're being told is the truth? We've covered a lot of ground so far. The hidden power structures, voter suppression, the influence of money, the illusion of change, and the media manipulation. So, let's take a step back and ask ourselves, is this really democracy? Or are we just buying into a myth? In its ideal form, democracy is supposed to be a system where every person has equal power, where our voices matter, and where the people truly decide their future. It's a system that values equality, fairness, and the will of the majority. But when we look at how the system actually functions, it's hard to ignore the glaring contradictions. Power doesn't lie with the people. It lies with the elites, corporations, and special interest groups who can afford to buy influence. The so-called democratic process is often manipulated with voter suppression, gerrymandering, and the influence of money preventing real change. The media, which should serve as a check on power, is too often controlled by corporate interests that benefit from maintaining the system as it is. And the two-party system limits the choices available to voters, leaving them stuck in a cycle of limited options and false promises. So, is American democracy still democracy? The truth is, it's hard to say. While we may still technically have the right to vote, that right is often undermined by a system designed to serve the interests of the powerful, not the people. When money and influence control the political process, when certain voices are silenced, and when the media distorts the truth, can we really say that the people are in charge? The democratic myth is just that, a myth. What we have today is a system that gives the illusion of democracy while reinforcing the power of those who already hold it. And as long as we continue to buy into this illusion, we're giving away our real power, one vote at a time. So, what does this mean for the future of American democracy? The first step is acknowledging the truth about the system we live in. Once we understand how democracy has been distorted, we can start to demand the changes necessary to make it more than just a myth. But that starts with us, asking the tough questions, questioning the narrative, and pushing for a system that truly serves the people, not just the powerful. And that's the real challenge. So what does that leave us? After everything we've explored, how power is concentrated in the hands of a few, how voting rights are undermined, how money shapes politics, and how the media manipulates public perception, it's clear that American democracy is not the perfect system we've been led to believe it is. We've been taught that democracy is about freedom, equality, and the people having the power. But in reality, it's a system that often works in favor of the powerful, leaving the majority of citizens struggling to have their voices heard. The two-party system, the influence of money, and the media's grip on the narrative create a distorted version of democracy, where true representation is just a distant dream. So what's next? Is this how democracy is supposed to work? Is this really the best system we can have? Or can we challenge the status quo and push for a system that better serves the needs of the people? The first step is awareness. Once we see the truth behind the illusion, we can start to think critically about how we can create a democracy that actually works for everyone. It won't be easy, and it won't happen overnight. But if we want a true democracy, one where the power truly rests with the people, we need to keep questioning, keep pushing for change, and keep demanding that our voices are heard. So, next time you hear someone say democracy, ask yourself, which democracy are they talking about? The one we've been taught to believe in, or the one we actually have? And more importantly, which one do we want to create for the future? The choice is ours. But it starts with recognizing the truth and refusing to settle for the